And my work, because there's a lot of people that like Pokemon, also entered a team, and we ended up beating the work team, which was really cool but also kind of awkward. Welkom by hierdie week se Geeky Speechy. So, this August we had both Book Week and Speech Pathology Australia Week, which is fantastic because I actually got sick. I was planning to even have some streaming, and there was a potential of it being the charity stream because the hospital foundation, I'm pretty sure, had some kind of a gamers and mental health, and then there was also gaming and different things with the hospital for smaller streamers to get on board and to raise some funds. And I really wanted to do that this year. I think there was also a cosplay thing, and I was sick for all of it. I missed most of Book Week, and ja, nie great nie. Maar I am here today to talk about the end of winter, as it is in the Southern Hemisphere, and the start of spring. But my September episode will be more Lentedag focused, and just about the different gaming and pop culture things that I've been up to. And today's episode will have a special focus on the Speech Pathology Australia theme for the year, which is kind of like a Speech and Hearing Month in America. And I'm pretty sure that in Europe there's something similar for speech therapists or speech and language pathologists. We have the theme this year for Communicate Your Way. And this is specifically focused on people that are using alternative or augmentative means of communication. Some people in Australia also refer to this as assistive technology when it's with aided communication, whereas unaided communication would be things like sign language or gestures or pointing or just general nonverbal cues. And aided communication would either be with, let's say, like picture exchange or using community cards for people that might have had a stroke or some kind of injury, and their communication is improving, but they still need that little bit of support. So sometimes they will, for those situations, have a bit more aided communication. And there's also a bunch of different applications, both on laptops, iPhones, iPads. There's also, I guess, like a rising amount of apps that are quite reliable on Android. But the iPad's really sort of, I think, leading the way in a lot of these areas. There's also specific tablets that aren't by a specific brand. Well, I mean, they are. It's like Tobii Dynavox that is just for a speech type of device. So that's a lot of that communication stuff. And that felt very overwhelming to talk about all of these things, and then also to bring it back to that pop culture space, bringing it back to the gaming community and sort of the application of it. And then I thought, well, a lot of these things are what the Geeky Speech is about, which is about that intersectionality of the nerdy or geeky space, and then also about communication and mental health and education, academics. So I thought maybe just to break it down to one specific thing, which is we are going to talk a little bit about sign language, which is not a universal language. Sign languages actually look quite different at different parts of the world. So that will be our topic for today. And I'll still talk a little bit about the AAC stuff, so the aided communication, and just generally have a good time talking about the theme of Communicate Your Way. So I hope you enjoy this episode, and definitely go and check out on audio-only platforms, because Spotify now has this option where you can comment on the episodes. It's fairly new, and we were just able to release our episodes on Spotify as well. It's been on Apple Podcast, Podchaser, Podbean, iHeartRadio, and now finally also on Spotify. And of course the YouTube version right here on the Mialotic YouTube channel. So be sure to share it with some colleagues, friends, acquaintances, maybe some special interest groups. That would really be appreciated. And if you're going to PAX, not PAX just gone past in America, but PAX that will be happening in Australia in October, then send me a message, preferably on Instagram, but Threads or X or that also works, because I would love to meet up with some other content creators and talk a lot about the topics that we cover here at the Geeky Speechy. So enjoy the episode. Speech pathology fact of the day, or like communication fact of the day, is that not all sign languages in the world are actually the same. And this isn't just dependent on the language mostly spoken in that country, because American Sign Language and British Sign Language have a lot of different ways in the way they sign, the type of signs they use, and even the way their grammar structure works. So I thought that was really interesting. Like, I knew that different countries had different ways of signing, and I knew that Americans had more of like a one-handed sign, whereas like Auslan is very much you use like both hands to sign. But I didn't realize that it was so different. And the reason for that is that similar to how we have different language families, like the Romance languages are very much like Italian and Spanish, and then we have languages like English that is from like that Germanic sort of branch, and therefore we have different ways that languages develop, but still have some similarities to other languages in those tree branches. So just like with some, spoken language, there's no universal sign language. Everyone has their own version, and it also depends on the region and the culture, because culture influences language a lot, and a lot of linguists will tell you, well, culture has a massive impact on the way we use language. So American Sign Language different from Auslan, which is different from British Sign Language, and if you're fluent in the one, well, you'll not be able to understand a lot from what someone using a different sign language has to say. And there are so many different dialects. Like even in Australia, if you sign certain things in the northern parts of Queensland, that's quite different to even the southern parts of Queensland. And that's within the state. And that's also just because of how these develop and the distance between people that communicate using that methodology. There are more than 300 different sign languages that we just know of in the world, and they are signed by more than 72 million deaf people right around the world. And the UN has proclaimed that in September, there's like an International Day of Sign Languages, which last year was on the 23rd of September, which is also Bisexual Visibility Day. But yeah, I think there's a point in the year where we just have so much overlap of different, this is the day this happened. It's like October. October when I was younger was only like breast cancer month, but now it's also like mental health month, and there's like a bunch of other stuff happening in October. So I guess it's sort of like pick something that you feel enthusiastic about and do something cool for that if you want to. You don't have to. So the International Sign Language is, like I was saying, it was sort of more used in the military or any kind of cross-linguistic communication like conferences and meetings, but it hasn't been seen as appropriate for just general use. And that's why I said it's probably more like a dialect or a pidgin. And in terms of the branches, just because here we sign Auslan, so like Auslan is part of the family that, the sign family that British, Australian, and New Zealand sign languages come from, whereas American Sign Language is from the French side. So they have a lot of Franco signs that, like Old French Sign Language, so Dutch and Flemish and French Belgium, Italian Sign Language, they're all from one sign family, which is interesting because linguistically, those languages are not all related. So I found that really cool. And then there's also some unique origins to different sign languages, like Chinese and Japanese Sign Language. They don't have anything in common, or if they do, then it would be quite a small number of signs. If you do know one of those sign languages and that information is incorrect, then please educate me in a kind manner. And yeah, there's also a lot of unrelated ones like Pakistani or Arabic sign languages. And I just think that's really interesting. In South Africa, so where I'm from, South African Sign Language is seen as like the 12th language of the official languages, because we have 11 official languages, and there was a lot of push for that language to be added as the 12th language. So I think that's also helpful to legitimize not just use, but distribution, knowledge, and the thing is that sign language isn't just used by people that are hard of hearing or deaf. The deaf community and those that do have some form of hearing difficulty, they really do push away from the term hearing impairment, because the deaf community has also developed as a culture, and so you will often see the word deaf being written with a capital D rather than a lowercase d. And that is because of deaf being very inherent to who they feel connected to and their culture and the way they do things, being a non-hearing person. And they don't see that a lot of people that are in that community does not see their deafness as an impairment, just like you wouldn't see whatever culture you've come from as an impairment as such. So although, yeah, we still have terminology like subtitles for the hearing impaired, a lot of that has now changed to hard of hearing, and it just also depends on where you are in the world, and people have different terminologies, and terminology changes over time, just like languages do. So I thought that was quite an interesting change just in our lifetime, as I was saying with subtitles on DVDs. So I was saying before that it isn't just used by people that do have some kind of issue with hearing all the information, or maybe are just not hearing at all. There's also a really good body of evidence for using sign language with children. And in terms of language development, we have keyword sign in Australia, which borrows signs from Auslan, which is our sign language name. And we also have baby sign, and a lot of that is to give visual information and a physical way for a child that may not have developed the ability to communicate, because maybe they haven't developed the way their tongue or their mouth or their lips move yet, but their fine motor skills have developed at a far more rapid rate. Then they are still able to do small signs, whereas they can't say drink. Drink is a complex cluster. That's complex. So instead of saying I want a drink, they can just sign, oh sorry, that's food. They can still sign drink. So they've now developed that vocabulary pre the ability to use speech. So I think that's a very interesting way of using sign language, and there is a lot of evidence to support that in language development, and a child will not speak if they are able to. Humans, they choose what is the fastest way to communicate their message, and very often that is using verbal language, speaking. So yes, talking is often a lot faster than a lot of other methods of communication. So if the child is able to, they will. And if they are unable to, they've already got a head start on their language acquisition, being in motion. So by the time that you notice, oh, well, maybe they will not be acquiring their language at the rate anticipated, well, they've already built their lexicon. They've acquired vocabulary. So now you're not working from a much, I guess, smaller pool from words. And that's powerful because that reduces frustration and a lot of behaviors, and there's so much to prevent just by doing that. And also they have the opportunity to learn more of a different language and different types of people, and I think that's fantastic. So the last thing on this is actually something that Microsoft did. So I saw this on the Xbox YouTube channel. So Microsoft added an accessibility feature to fours are 5. And I can't believe I never really thought about this. So I watched the video, I'll add it to the description, both in YouTube and on, I think I should be able to add it on like Spotify and Apple. So they actually sign the cutscene. So there's a person that pops up on the screen while there's dialogue happening, and then someone is signing it. And that's incredible. And in the interview, one of the developers or one of the people that they consulted with to help them with the different signs, or like what is like an appropriate way of doing different sentence structures, because that's the thing, is sentence structure, so syntax, is different in sign language compared to spoken language. And so what this consultant was saying was, well, I'm consuming basically the world when I'm reading subtitles in a second language. And I mean, there's not a lot of shows that have Afrikaans subtitles, so I can definitely attest to, well, it is cool that I can read things and understand things, but it's not my first language. And I think that it's fantastic that there was an effort made to do this. And I think that we can all agree that indie games are a lot better at adding a variety of accessibility features, and often that has to do with the developer and their background and the type of experiences that they've had. But I think it's fantastic that more AAA games and big companies like Microsoft is putting in a lot of effort to allow more accessibility features, and that means the more that happens, the more we're able to get it, the more feasible a lot of variety of features there are, because gaming is for everyone, and it'll be great to see more creative people that want to work on games, and now they can because they can access games in the first place using these features. And yeah, it also made me really interested to think a bit more about Xbox, because I don't grow up with Xbox, so I would really like to consider at some point doing a bit of a deep dive into Xbox, because they seem to be leading the way compared to some of the other companies in terms of accessibility. This is outside of the indie space. If there are other companies that you know of, please let me know in the comments. I would really like to get in contact with someone to just speak more about this type of, I guess, growing field and expansive field of providing more opportunities for different type of gamers to enjoy gaming. And I think that's fantastic. So that was the main thing about sign language that I wanted to talk about, and then connecting it to gaming. But before I now transition into talking more about gaming and what I've been doing recently, I do want to talk a little bit more about speech pathology, and that is about the theme of communicate your way. So the fact was about sign language. So generally, because it was Speech Pathology Australia Week, I should just mention again, if you haven't seen some of the previous episodes or listened to some of the previous episodes. So speech pathologists, they work with people from all ages. There's people working in pediatric feeding in the hospital with babies, and then at the end of life stage in respite and hospice and like hospital care at the end of life, or in community health with people that are quite old or nearing the end of their life. So speeches, we work everywhere. And with that, we work in communication and also in eating or swallowing. They are university educated, allied health professionals, and often work in multidisciplinary teams or in the education setting or mental health setting. So generally just helping people, giving them the support or the tools so that they can help understand each other, talk to each other, be social, help with reading and writing. I see a lot of reading and writing adults, like not young adults. That's such a confusing term, really. I see a lot of like 17 to 21-year-olds for functional literacy, which is one of my favorite things. And then also using technology in their ways to communicate better. So that might be just to use a bit more speech to text or text to speech on their phones. Are they able to add an extension to their browser to help them to formulate different sentences or to help correct their sentences? And that's a really cool part of it. And as an extension to that, you know, whether it's spoken or signed or digital communication, people talking on Discord, the way they talk on Discord, the way they speak in a different way online than in real person. Trolls, unfortunately. Well, there's so many opportunities to bridge gaps where communication breakdowns happen, and that helps strengthen our relationships and our connections to other people and our occupation and even our sense of self, because sometimes not having the words can add frustration to not being able to convey or even to ourselves understand what we're experiencing and what we're going through. Now, something I mentioned in the intro as well was just that the Communicate Your Way also extended to using devices to communicate, so when someone is not using any or very little verbal language, and that's something I will get into more later on, especially if there's a bit of an interest. It is a field that I'm just more getting into now. Like, I'm able to do a lot of that because of what we studied at university, but I just do not have, I don't have the experience to talk on it too much at this point. Like, I've got a few clients using AAC or like assistive tech, but a lot of that is still in that early implementation phase, and I haven't seen a pediatric client for AAC for a long time, probably since 2022, mostly working when I work with adults. That sometimes is one of the method of communication we explore. Now I would like to talk about Book Week. Now, Children's Book Week in Australia is a really big thing. We didn't have anything like this in South Africa. Maybe we do now. Please let me know if you're from South Africa and you know that people do this. It's the annual celebration of books for young people and the joy of reading. Schools, libraries, community organizations work their celebration of children's books in and around completing activities and making the date work best for them. It's basically a week-long book party about characters, the type of stories they tell, how they connect to us, and we get to dress up. There's a lot of people that go all out in their dress up, whether that's at school or at work. And unfortunately this year, I missed Book Week, but I will link a little reel I made from last year where every day of the week I wore something different for Book Week. Not like big cosplay or anything. I kind of wanted to not cosplay, but I did sort of wear like an aesthetic or something different, or like how I'm now wearing the Pokemon like blazer. So yeah, it's just a fun opportunity to just talk about different wonderful stories. Okay, so nou gaan ons net bietjie gesels oor gaming and pop culture, and I'm going to keep this episode a little bit short on the gaming side because I feel like we did talk a little bit about gaming as we've transitioned out of the speech pathology fact. The only real update that I have is that I can't remember if I mentioned, but I think I did, that I started playing Hades, and then I started playing Early Access Hades 2, and then I started playing Original Hades, and now I really want to do a cosplay of someone in Hades, and I've identified that I will probably be doing a Nyx cosplay, potentially for PAX. Well, I want to do an outfit inspired by Nyx rather than the actual cosplay, because I think that I'm getting more interested in doing sort of like aesthetics or sort of like an idea of, yes, you can see that I'm a character, but you have to sort of look again to confirm. And also because sometimes when I cosplay, I also need to go to other places afterwards, and I also don't want to do a lot of content while in like a wig and like a lot of other things, because I'm mostly going there to do content creating and hopefully connecting with some other creators, and maybe even doing off-the-cuff podcast episodes or like little interviews that I can combine into a podcast episode. So I'm really determined to keep it more on. I'm going there more for geeky, speechy things rather than cosplay or like general like Mialotic content. And that's coming up soon. That'll be in October. I am hoping to get one, maybe two of my friends to do a guest episode with me if they're in town at the time or if they're visiting, because I would love for us to talk a bit about just cons and prepping for conventions and also the different options for different people. I know some of my friends have like disability passes, what that even looks like. And also because I know just past PAX in America just finished up at the start of, the end of August, start of September, which this episode will come out early in September. So even though it's like the last episode for winter, but that's another case. And just with a couple of other things ahead in Australia. Like we've still got Oz Comic Con, we've got Supernova, we've got a bunch of other things coming up. So yeah, I really want to do a con episode pre-going to the con. I think that'll be a lot of fun. In other gaming news, I started playing Atelier Ryza 2, and that is because I got a special, not a review code, it is technically a review code, but I got it as like a lucky draw prize thing. I don't know, I shared a post and Koei Tecmo gave me a code, which I'm really excited about because I struggled a bit with Atelier Ryza 3 because I was playing it on my Switch and the subtitles were really small and it's not in English, it's only in Japanese. So sometimes the times that I would play, I was really tired. I already had a lot of screen time during the day from work, so that made it a bit not as accessible for me. So I'm excited to play more of Atelier Ryza 2, and I really like this JRPG series, and it sucks that I like JRPGs because with JRPGs, they take long and I don't have that much time, but it's a really good time. I was going to do a stream playing either Stray Gods or Arcadia Fallen. I mentioned a bit earlier that I wanted to do it as like a charity stream, but I think that was just not on the cards for August, so maybe when I come back from PAX that would be good. I did get a review copy of the new Fairy Fencer game, so that is Refrain Chord. It is a bit of a different gameplay. The original Fairy Fencer was more sort of like action-based games, and this is like tactical, more like, I'm sorry, I actually don't know how to pronounce this gear. I just know of the franchise, but yeah, tactical, so you have like the board and then you move the pieces, but you move the characters and it's on a grid. Like Fire Emblem. Fire Emblem is probably the best example of this. So I'm new to that type of gameplay, but I am enjoying it. Like I like the pretty music. I like that there's an element of music that isn't part of the game mechanic. I do think that if you really liked Fairy Fencer before, you may be a bit disappointed in it because it doesn't have English voice acting, so it doesn't have a lot of the humor that they had for the English version. And in saying that though, the writing is still fantastic, and I do think there's still a couple of great moments to chuckle from. And then I also got a code from Indie Experience for Dolphin. I haven't been able to delve into Dolphin, but that is something that I would like to do in the next couple of weeks before I leave. And then I've been tempted to get back into a Pokemon game because I've been watching Team Sky. That's a reference to MJTV does these role play, let's plays, I guess, and then shortens them down, just like any kind of like long play, and then pretends to be a character in the game. I don't really know how to explain it. It's a lot of fun, and it has now very much tempted me to go back and finish Pokemon Scarlet, because I did not do that because of many reasons that we have spoken about on the channel before. Mainly it's a really big map, lots of things to do, but also it doesn't perform very well on the Switch, and that makes it a bit tedious to play. So then I ended up buying Legends Arceus after Scarlet and Violet and played that instead. But yes, I would like to get back to Pokemon Scarlet, and I've just been on a really good Pokemon curve at the moment. I haven't engaged with a lot of Pokemon things recently, not for really a particular reason. I've just been trying to give my attention more to other games. But I had a really great Pokemon Go World Championship. I did have a really good Pokemon Go day, but also Pokemon World Championships was just so much fun to watch. I watched Ace Trainer Liam stream with it and watch a bunch of people from his community just getting on it, seeing a lot of Wolf Glick videos. And yeah, it's just been really good. Like, they did amazing at the Hawaii World Championships, and the VGC final, oh, it was fantastic to watch. So yeah, I think I'm a little bit more in a Pokemon mood at the moment. But in saying that, I am trying not to just completely go back into the Pokemon rabbit hole. I am trying to play more other games as well. And especially with so many amazing titles at the moment in the backlog that I've been keen to play, and now I have them, so I would like to play them. So those are the main things for gaming. And then the last thing, speaking of Pokemon, my friends and I, we entered a Pokemon trivia thing at a pub, and my work, because there's a lot of people that like Pokemon, also entered a team, and we ended up beating the work team, which was really cool but also kind of awkward. But I had such a great time. There were like Pokemon sounds from like Fire Red and like a lot of like the older games, and some of the questions were quite difficult. Some of them were easy because they were supposed to also make it good for people that may have not engaged with Pokemon consistently over the last 20-25 years. So yeah, I thought it was a great event, and yeah, we won prizes and it was so much fun, and I didn't expect us to win, but we did, and that was really cool. So that was a bit of the geeky high for the month, and I think that really wraps up a lot of the pop culture things going on at the moment. I had a lot of fun watching Deadpool and Wolverine like everybody else, and I can't wait to feel that like high energy music watching it again when I'm able to see it. And there's a few Japanese movies and anime films that have been announced to be in theaters. I don't know if we'll get them in Australia, especially in the regional areas, so fingers crossed. And other than that, I've just been having a lot of fun reading more of One Piece and then taking a break from One Piece. I did borrow the Ancient Magus Bride manga from a friend, so I think when I take my next break in One Piece, I am going to read Ancient Magus Bride. So I think that'll be great. So I hope that you were able to learn something, and I would really appreciate if you could share it with someone that you know and get the podcast out there and get more people engaging and interacting with the community. That would be fantastic. So, see you in the next episode. Die outro van die outro. Ek weet nie regtig hoe goed hierdie werk vanaand nie. Ek dink is oulik dat Togepi net daar sit. Shout out to all the eggs. Heerlike lente. Even though in the northern hemisphere it is herfst, autumn, fall vibes, witchy things, which is my favorite time of the year, want ek kan die son and the flowers and the frolicking and the birds, I can enjoy all of that, and online then enjoy the cozy autumn vibes. So pretty good. Okay, lekker dag julle.